Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Tuesday morning, January the 9th. A lot to talk about this morning. We have some intense cold in the picture here for a week from now into the U.S. We have two major storm systems that will impact a wide part of the nation over the next several days, from the Midwest to the Great Lakes, Mid-Atlantic region, Northeast U.S., and there's a third storm system that's a possibility for the first half of next week, and that time enough cold air will be in the eastern states that snow will be on the table for the big cities along the I-95 corridor region. Let's start off here with a quick look ahead to the actual temperatures. These are not anomalies. These are actual temperatures forecasted by last night's run of the European ensemble model for a week from right now, next Tuesday, January 16th. Just some intense cold here that looks like it'll drop from Canada into the north central, northwestern part of the U.S. and work its way into the Mississippi Valley region, the Tennessee Valley region by the time we get to a week from right now. That second system, Friday, Saturday system that moves into the northeastern part of the nation, that is the system that will usher in some true Arctic air into the eastern states, potentially setting us up for some snow during the early part of next week along the I-95 corridor region. But again, this is a forecast map for next Tuesday, January 16th, way below zero throughout much of this part of the nation. Again, that Arctic air will spill out all the way to the eastern seaboard by the end of this upcoming weekend. Well, we've talked at length about this stratospheric warming event that really got underway in November. This is a 30-day loop of the actual temperatures at 10 millibars. It's way up in the atmosphere, what we call the stratosphere, and there was kind of one initial burst of warming here, shown in red. And this top line right here represents the polar region of the northern hemisphere, and there was kind of a secondary push at the beginning at the end of December into the early part of January. Right here we'll see that second burst right here of warming. And typically stratospheric warming events during the winter time in the northern hemisphere may take a few weeks, maybe as much as a month or so, to have impact on temperatures across the continental U.S. In this particular case, a series of very, very cold air masses moved in December to the other side of the North Pole into places like China, and the North and South Korea had some of their coldest temperatures in many, many years. And just the last week or so, Scandinavian countries of Sweden, Denmark, and Norway experienced some of their lowest temperatures in many, many decades. This time, there's intense cold coming into the western part of Canada, and again, that slides later this week and weekend into the north central, into the northwestern part of the U.S., and works its way all the way to the south and east, and it gets much colder in the eastern states by the time we get to Sunday and Monday of next week. But again, quite an impressive stratospheric warming event. By the way, if you have an interest in investigating this atmospheric phenomenon a little bit in more detail, go to the Meteorology 101 page at Arcfieldweather.com, and I have a videotape, a detailed discussion of stratospheric warming. Quite an amazing phenomenon, and it's certainly going to have an impact on the rest of the winter season. In fact, it was a kind of a key factor in our winter outlook, which you can find right here, by the way. Go to Seasonal Outlooks, where we talked about the negative QBO, and that enhances the chance of stratospheric warming events, and it certainly looks like it's coming to fruition here and it'll have an impact on U.S. temperatures probably from mid-January on through February, perhaps even into March. Doesn't mean it'll be below normal that whole time period. In fact, that's usually not the way it works. We have this intense cold air mass later this week into next week. Very likely it can relax after that for a week or two, and the atmosphere tends to reload in a stratospheric warming event, kind of a sequence here, and a second or perhaps even a third push of some intense cold air is likely on the way for later in the winter season. Well, let's get a little bit more focused on the near term here. Let's start off by looking at the ensemble run of the GFS from last night, the 850 millibar temperature anomalies here. Going forward, we're taking the North America view, a lot of warmer than normal conditions across the eastern third of the nation as we begin the day here on Tuesday, January 9th. Now, let's move forward here and just kind of take a look at the temperature pattern. Here we go. The development of that intense cold air all the way from Saskatchewan all the way to British Columbia in Canada here later this week. This is the Wednesday evening forecast map, and that intense cold works its way to the south and east. I've mentioned that cold, dry Arctic air is the most dense kind of air there is, and it's kind of hard to stop it. Once it starts to move to the south and east, it usually ends up going all the way to the south and east to the eastern seaboard. Indeed, in this case, here we are now late in the week into the early part of the weekend. Again, we'll go through these upcoming storm systems, but there's a powerful storm today into tomorrow and another powerful storm Friday into Saturday. On the heels of that second storm, colder Arctic air works its way all the way to the eastern seaboard. Here we get all the way into Sunday, and this is intense cold here. When you're some 25 degrees below normal in the middle part of January, that is some awfully cold air, especially if there's some snow cover, and we're indeed laying down some snow cover as we speak out over the middle part of the nation, and eventually the Midwest will have a lot of snow cover by the time we get to the upcoming weekend. And then we'll push forward here, and that cold air, again, once it arrives, it's kind of hard to dislodge. It doesn't mean we'll stay colder than normal for the next, each day for the next few weeks. In fact, it's liable to relax, and then we may get a secondary push of intense air. But this is all the way out now into the middle part of next week. So indeed, if there is a third storm system, which I think is certainly on the table for the early part of next week, early to mid part of next week, it could be cold enough for snow even in the I-95 corridor, big city regions. Well, let's walk through the 500 millibar forecast maps. These are the 500 millibar height anomaly forecast maps from last night's operational run of the GFS. Those 850 millibar temperatures were from the ensemble run of the GFS. Here we are beginning the day here on Tuesday. Very, very vigorous upper level low. And again, a powerful storm system. Big impact later today through tonight, mid-Atlantic, northeast U.S. Flooding's on the table. Power outages are on the table. Certainly winds can gust up to 50 to 55 miles per hour in the big cities. 60 plus miles per hour along coastal sections of, let's say, New Jersey all the way up along Long Island, the New England coastline during this upcoming event. That moves on through, and we have another powerful storm system seen here with the upper level low as of Friday morning. This becomes an all-out blizzard for the Midwest. By the way, much of the Great Lakes region will also have very, very strong winds, and even though there may not be heavy snow in some of the Great Lakes region, like the eastern Great Lakes, blizzard-like conditions are a possibility on Saturday with some blowing snow and some snow shower activity, but the winds will be fierce throughout the Great Lakes region, the Midwest, later this weekend, especially this upcoming weekend. Again, on Saturday, it could be blizzard conditions, places like Buffalo, even into Rochester, even without significant snow. There might be enough blowing snow for to accompany very, very strong winds. So this is the upper level low associated with that second storm system, again producing heavy rain, strong winds in the mid-Atlantic, northeast U.S. And then we'll go into the early part of next week, and there indeed will be a third system that we'll have to monitor. This is all the way into next Monday now, again using the operational version of the GFS. And here we are a week from right now. This is a system we'll have to watch, and keep in mind, this time there'll be some true Arctic air situated in the mid-Atlantic region in the eastern U.S. Now, unfortunately, power outages are on the table later today, tonight, into the day on Wednesday throughout the mid-Atlantic region, the northeast U.S., associated partly as a contributing factor is a very strong low-level jet stream couple thousand feet off the surface. We'll have some very strong winds, not only associated with this storm system, but we'll see here in a moment, also associated with that second storm system. Friday into Saturday looks like more heavy rain and strong winds, potentially damaging winds, mid-Atlantic, northeast U.S. Here is, as we begin the day here, this is the forecast map from last night's zero-Z run for this morning in terms of the 850 millibar temperatures. Again, this is about 5,000 feet off the surface level. Very, very strong winds on the front side of that low, and that just translates to the eastern seaboard by this evening. It'll be increasingly windy today. D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, probably the time period for the worst of the winds will be tonight. And there may even be a kind of a line of intense showers, maybe a rumble of thunder coming through in the latter part of the evening. Could be very strong winds associated with that particular line, but again, expect winds up to 50, 55 miles per hour or so in the big cities, 60 plus miles per hour along the coastal sections of the mid-Atlantic, northeast U.S. Those will typically be east to southeast winds on the front side of this storm system, so that adds to the possibility of some coastal flooding, let's say along New Jersey coastline as an example. Now, let's just quickly move through. On Wednesday, still quite windy in the Mid-Atlantic region from a different direction. On Wednesday, they'll probably gust up to 40 miles per hour or so on average out of the west, maybe west-southwest. So we have east to southeast winds later today and especially tonight, and then a shift, still strong on Wednesday, maybe west to southwest winds up to 40 miles per hour or so. And certainly power outages, unfortunately, are on the table. We have soggy, waterlogged grounds throughout the Mid-Atlantic region, the northeast U.S. If a tree has weak roots, it'll really be vulnerable to coming down in these kinds of strong winds, and certainly there can be some broken limbs as well. So that's why power outages on the table. Another factor that could exacerbate the conditions later today in terms of flooding, there is snow cover. Some of these interior sections, let's say of east central Pennsylvania, northeast Pennsylvania, that snow will melt later today, contributing to the possibility of some significant flooding in the Mid-Atlantic region and the northeast U.S. Now, let's quickly go to the second storm system later this week that looks like could turn out to be an all-out blizzard for parts of the Midwest. Here we go again, a strong low-level jet streak. This is the Friday evening forecast map. It just translates again to the eastern seaboard overnight Friday night, raising the possibility of more heavy rain, strong and potentially damaging wind gusts on Friday night in the Mid-Atlantic region. Kind of a repeat performance of later today and tonight in the Mid-Atlantic, northeast U.S. Again, out over the Midwest, Great Lakes, blizzard or blizzard-like conditions into the early part of the upcoming weekend. Some significant snow, places like Michigan, maybe back to Illinois, Indiana, maybe even Wisconsin as well. An all-out blizzard for parts of the Midwest. And that second system ushers in some true Arctic air into the eastern part of the nation, potentially setting things up for a storm system during the first half of next week to be in the form of snow in much of the Mid-Atlantic region. Well, let's now walk through the surface forecast maps of the zero-Z run of the GFS, a wide area of the country, all the way from the Mississippi Valley to the Great Lakes, and ultimately today the Mid-Atlantic, northeast U.S. being impacted by this first storm system. And again, we've emphasized the pressure gradient between this high over southeastern Canada and this intensifying low over the Midwest will be quite tight, quite strong, leading to very powerful winds, again, east to southeast, increasing today in the Mid-Atlantic region. And here we go. Look at the tightness of these isobars here, these lines of equal pressure. Very impressive indeed. Again, 50, 55 mile per hour wind gusts on the table for the interior sections of the I-95 corridor region like D.C., Philadelphia, and 60 plus miles per hour on the table for coastal sections from maybe the Delmarva Peninsula up across the New Jersey coast, Long Island, and throughout the New England coastline as well. Accumulating snow in the cold sector, Wisconsin, upper part of Michigan, back to Illinois. The accumulating snow for that second system later this week a little bit shifted to the east compared to this first one. We'll see that in a moment here. Heavy rain, maybe some rumbles of thunder across the mid-Atlantic region later today into tonight. We'll move forward here. Very, very, look at this, the tightness of this pressure pattern here is quite impressive indeed, and 60 plus mile per hour winds down East Maine later tonight into tomorrow morning. And then on the backside on Wednesday, a lot of wind continues, maybe up to 40 miles per hour or so throughout the mid-Atlantic region. Not quite as strong as what I expect this evening into the overnight hours, but it'll be from a different direction, west to southwest. And after suffering through strong winds out of the east to southeast, it may kind of weaken some of these limbs, and then the shift in direction could really present a problem later tonight into tomorrow. Again, westerly winds on Wednesday. And then we move ahead to the next system, and it looks like another powerhouse system. This could become a major snow producer across places like Michigan, Indiana, as far west as Illinois and Wisconsin. Now just take a look at the tightness of these isobars here with this system. Again, this whole area can have very powerful winds, especially the Great Lakes region, potentially hurricane force winds associated with this system. The central pressure is extremely low here. This is showing 972 as of late Friday night. That is very low pressure. Again, a midwestern blizzard here, again out of the east to southeast, with rains across the mid-Atlantic region, interior snows, but this whole area has the potential for some damaging wind gusts here. Now let's go forward here. Just again, the Great Lakes region right here, very, very windy conditions. And by the time we get to Saturday afternoon, there are very likely to be some heavy snow bands coming in off the still relatively warm Great Lakes. And you throw in 50, 60, maybe 70 mile per hour winds, and you have blizzard-like conditions all the way across upstate New York, down to southwestern New York, western Pennsylvania. Maybe not significant snow, but indeed blizzard-like conditions with some snow bands coming in off those, again, still relatively warm Great Lakes. But these are powerful winds coming in on the backside with true Arctic air making its way all the way to the eastern seaboard. We'll take a quick peek at the early week system, and not too much showing up here on the GFS for the potential third storm system. GFS oftentimes has a little bit of a problem with storm systems that form along an Arctic boundary, so I think this may be underdoing what may ultimately happen during the early to middle part of next week. Again, enough cold air reaches the eastern seaboard later this week, and that snow will be on the table if indeed this third system does come to fruition here early to middle part of next week. Again, GFS is not too impressed right now, but I think it often suppresses low pressure along Arctic boundaries. We'll see as we get closer to the event how this evolves with respect to these computer forecast models. But a major storm system later today and tonight, mid-Atlantic, northeast U.S., Midwest, Great Lakes, and a second one Friday, Saturday time frame. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, this has been meteorologist Paul Dorian.